Okay.
Yeah, I think it's much better.
Okay. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear EUSAIR members and dear guests, welcome on the part of today's program about energy networks. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Sergio Gariba and Professor Coppola, and of course the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the organization of this event, for the hospitality, and the opportunity to actively participate today in this program. My name is Biljana Ramić, and I'm head of the unit for the strategic planning in the Ministry of Mining and Energy, Republic of Serbia, and Serbian coordinator for energy networks. Energy sector, as you know, is faced with lots of challenges in order to provide modern way of life. These challenges are the political, financial, scientific, economic, and social. These challenges require various areas of action, which should be carefully strategic planned, harmonized, justified, achievable, and, of course, linked locally, nationally, and regionally. Today, we would like to present what we've done and how we see energy, our pillar energy network, in EUSAIR in the next period. We prepared a few very interesting topics for you: master plan on energy networks, roadmap, labeled projects for energy networks, and of course, a revised action plan in the path for energy. I propose to start with the first topic and kindly invite Mr. Tabarelli and Mr. Bulic to present master plan on energy networks for the Adriatic and Ionian region.
Grazie Biljana, è un piacere ricevere il palco, il floor from you. Thanks Biljana, thank you to Olana, where is she? Olana and my colleagues, Davide, Gianni, Alessandro, all the team. Thank you to Gucci for the wonderful food we have a few minutes ago. That is a problem now, because to keep you awake will be difficult. Thank you to all the rest of EUSAIR. We have learned a lot. Thank to Peja, who is going to share with me the presentation, with whom we prepared this master plan. It is very thick. We have been publishing the report you find is just the summary of it. Thanks also to Guido. We worked together with this roadmap, but most of all, I have to thank you, the guy who is walking away exactly now, Professor Gariba, in the white dress. So he insisted to have us in this project, and it is interesting. This, I understood, I learned that in order to unite, unite countries, and we have a desperately needed to unite Europe in this moment. And the slogan, the truth that I'm using now is that we have to build infrastructures. I grew up in the energy sector, and I'm very proud to work on this energy grids. That is mainly what we have covered is electricity and natural gas grids. Before my presentation is on this master, I will present the first part, and the second with the most important things, the conclusions, and the challenges, and the opportunities, and what is, I do not remember. But anyway, I leave it to Peja. Recommendations, yes, and also for the future. We have to look forward, how to continue these projects. I'm going to touch these points. I will focus with the help of Scapinelli on scenarios, how we built these scenarios that on which we developed these challenges, these difficulties, and on which also Guido studied the possibilities to reach the targets and what is the roadmaps, and then the conclusions. What is the master plan? The master plan provides the outlook of the energy system and covers the policies. It addresses national administration and energy institutions. We want what Adamo asked me what to do with this master plan. I try to explain him. First of all, we have to recognize that the energy community is ahead of this EUSAIR structure. And therefore, we take always the energy community as a reference, as Professor Garriba told me from the very beginning. We defined these scenarios to this deadline of 2030 and 2050, and with 3 scenarios: current policy scenarios, new policy scenarios, and this target, this kind of dream that is net zero scenario towards 2050. And then we develop also additional 3 studies. One of these studies is exactly covering the transport sector, how to boost the use of LNG in the transport sector. These are the main points, the main squares of the master plan. General frameworks at the beginning, baseline defined in 2019, when the year where we have final statistics, then the horizon to 2030, that is a deadline also for the European Commission, for the European Union policies that we know are very ambitious and to which we confront our scenarios, and then the horizon 2050, where we have envisaged as Europe the net zero economy. Then we have also these 3 flagship studies. One is LNG in transport, one is natural gas infrastructure for the gas market, and the power networks for the power markets. This table wants to synthesize, to summarize how we built these 3 scenarios, or each box is a scenario built by other institutions, and we have taken as a reference those in the orange boxes, that of the national energy and climate plans of the different countries. Then we have Daniel from the Minister of Environment here in Italy, who is coming. Thanks for coming, despite the fact that Italy now is, and he is working on the Italian National Energy and Climate Plan. And we developed then a new policy scenario, taking into account additional policies that could make easier or shorter the distance compared to the targets. And at the end of the third scenario is that of net zero, how we can achieve the net zero in 2050, that is going to be extremely difficult. And the International Energy Agency has become a reference. I would say that it is the only institute at the international level developing a scenario of this kind, so distant in time and also so ambitious. Because to get rid of fossil fuel sources of energy is, according to my opinion, more than difficult. It's something almost impossible. But anyway, we have to develop face very challenging policies in order to try to reach these targets. These are the energy consumptions of the different countries. You see that we had from the very beginning a problem of Italy. Italy is the largest one, the blue line, the blue area, and in all the different scenarios, each column refers to different scenarios. Each one foresees a reduction of energy consumption. This is due to a very simple assumption that is the most simple one to adopt, that there is a huge space in this area for energy efficiency. More energy efficiency that will bring a reduction of consumption. I underline the fact that in 2015, the net zero emission scenario, we do not have zero consumption, of course. We consume still a lot of energy, but this energy will come, according to this scenario, only from clean energy sources. And this is a wonderful scenario. It is a kind of dream. I like the dreams. Natural gas is going to be replaced by renewable energy sources. And in contrast, you see that in 2050, natural gas is going almost to disappear in these countries, in this area. And this small amount of consumption of natural gas will be concentrated in power generation mostly, where it will provide base load capacity that is absolutely needed in order to offset the intermittency of renewable energy sources. This means that also this power generation with natural gas, along with, we do not touch now this delicate point of coal consumption also in 2050, there will be room for carbon capture and sequestration. That is a solution that will be developed, because so far it's not well developed, at least in Europe, in order to permit, to allow the consumption also in the future of small amount of fossil fuels. This is, it is the same figure of before. There is that column, a green column, that wants just to underline the fact that the net zero scenario towards 2050 and also 2030 could not be achieved, given the fact that there are so many difficulties in getting rid from fossil fuels. We saw this morning, and I would say it is fault of the transport sector, that we cannot abandon oil products in transport. I open brackets, and since we have here an important Ancona, the Regione Market, that is hosting this event, and I want to mention that close to Ancona there is an important plant that all the politicians want to close, but instead that I want to mention because it is extremely important for the transport sector, that is producing oil products for the transport sector, that is the refinery of Falconara, that is also close to San Marino, by the way. So you are a state, you have to be aware of this point, because it is a fact that also to raise the attention, to be a little bit maverick on these subjects, but keep in mind that all transport in Europe, in Italy, in the world, by over 90% is made with oil products. Therefore, there are this problem. And also remember that in this place, in Rome at least, we are trying to organize an event next October. Professor Garriba, I hope you are hearing me, for the 50 years anniversary of the first oil shock of 1973, Yom Kippur, 14th of October 1973. It is, ever since that date, we have been trying to do something for getting rid of oil products dependency in the transport sector. So the results are not so good so far. We can do a lot of things in the next futures, but this green column wants to, to emphasize the possibility that we can still have the need to use a lot of gas, and especially natural gas, especially also in the transport sector. All over the world, there are two reasons that are behind the strong growth of energy demand worldwide. One is mobility, and we have Professor Coppola, who is an expert. I'm always following his speeches, and it is so interesting what the transport sector in general is producing. And again, I mentioned this morning that we do not have a lot of discussion each other. But it is mobility is what is pushing on energy demand worldwide, and also in our country, in our region. The other is electrification. So we have to produce electricity. We want to have transport only based on electricity. Of course, cars, trains, coal and iron in different harbors. So this is a starting point on which we are all sure that this development will accelerate, also because we want more electricity in all finance sectors, but we have to produce it. So you see, here in our scenarios, electricity demand is more than doubling. So therefore, there is a need, since electricity is not like the air that is coming, it's everywhere, or the light, when there is the sun, by the way, is everywhere. We have to concentrate in building infrastructures. First of all, force of electricity, and secondly, force that are producing electricity. Now it is mainly gas. We are confident that this gas might be replaced completely or almost completely by renewable energy sources. But in the meantime, we have also some other fuels. This is an astonishing rise of renewable energy sources. Physically, you can understand that it is not ambitious, this one. A rise of this dimension from 15 now of percentage to 97%, it is something extraordinary. From 15 to 100. So it is more or less, Daniel, what I saw in the draft of an Italian national climate and energy plan, that we are foreseeing an increase of renewable of 3-4 times in the next 7 years. So we need the infrastructure. A key element we have to keep in mind is that in the area there are still important characteristics of the electricity system, in particular that of use of coal. It might seem a weakness, this one, but it is not, because the rest of Europe experienced last year a return to coal. I've been discussing this morning, yesterday, in Rome, at an important level, the need absolutely in Italy to keep at full steam, full capacity, the use of existing coal plants, as it has been done in Germany last year. So in the future, we foresee, of course, everybody in the world, also the Chinese, also the Indians, wants to get rid of coal. Who wants to have coal that is dirty and dusty and black, by the way? So everybody would like to have a cleaner way of producing electricity. But in the meantime, we are coming from a structure, from a continent that is still reliant, and from a world that is relying strongly on coal. Incredible, but there is still room also for nuclear. I do not want to speculate a lot, to debate a lot about this, but within EUSAIR area countries, there are 2 countries, Slovenia and Croatia, who are developing an expansion of a nuclear facility, and also the Italian consumers are interested. This is not something secret to be kept confidential. No, we know that big industrial consumers want to take part of expansion of this nuclear facility in order to import stable and cheap also nuclear electricity. Keep in mind that nuclear is the only source of energy that provides a huge amount of concentrated energy density, that is what we want, along with no emission of CO2. That is completely different from renewable energy sources. Donatella, stai attenta perché quando diventerai esperta dell'energia, I want to emphasize this point. Renewable energy sources do not emit CO2, but they are dispersed, scattered around, intermittent, and they do not provide energy density. And this is a problem, flow that physically that cannot be overcome. So nuclear instead is something very interesting. This is the map of the ENTSO-E, the group of European transmission system operator. We have Corrado here representing the industry. Thank you for coming. And on this, it is already existing. We also took it, blanketed a little bit, and we built the lines, the projects that are most important for the development of this EUSAIR strategy that is based on projects in order to build infrastructures, in order to unite this part of Europe to which we, especially Ancona, belongs. Now, I want just to mention the number 7, that is the Moneta. The guys from Interconnector are still here. Dove sono finiti? Ecco, yes, Edoardo. Interconnector, that is a consortium of big industrial consumers. Again, they want, because Italy is a manufacturing country, an industrial country. I am proud to repeat it, and they need electricity. And the fact that they are so present now in the expansion also of this project. It started several years ago, I want to mention, we were discussing before, because the municipality of Milano, AM, at that time, with Zuccoli, they wanted to import hydro from Montenegro. And again, this is a good point to point out, since all this region is plenty of potentiality of renewable energy sources, of course wind and solar, but also of hydro. I want to mention just that the electricity grid is well developed in the Balkan region, thanks also to the past, to the investments made in the past, and also to the recent efforts. I like also to point to the Grita, the connection with Greece, because this is a kind of bridge uniting different sides of the Adriatic Sea. The same from ENTSO-G for gas. This is the map of ENTSO-G with a lot of connection. Italy has one of the most developed gas grid in the world, one of the most efficient. We have here a representative from STAM. Then I'm waiting from a guy from TAP. On the eastern side of EUSAIR, we do not have such developed gas grid. Therefore, this is a point that we have been discussing. And it is also a delicate point, because the question mark is natural gas going to be so important also in the future? Do we need a new infrastructure? I believe yes, because it will take a lot of time before arriving at the point where we can get rid, and we have a lot of renewable energy sources. So these are a lot of other projects. One of the most interesting is, of course, TAP, Trans-Adriatic Pipeline, that for us, Italian, it is being a kind of romance or a very painful history development. And but we have also a lot of other projects. EastMed, bringing gas from the huge amount of natural gas resources we have in the Eastern Med where the Italian company has discovered this wonderful and gigantic gas reserves. Developments, we want to get at least the YAP towards the north. We are coming from a gas crisis of last year, 2022. It is not over. Fingers crossed for the next winter. Again, we can face future or present crisis with more infrastructures, and we are here for this purpose. I'm talking too much, and I move the floor to Peja. Grazie for the most important things, for our challenges, conclusions.
Thank you, Davide, for this great introduction. Can we go back? Yes. Thank you. That's it. You mentioned many topics which are interesting to discuss, and you also crossed some challenges identified during the preparation of and evaluation of scenarios for 2050 horizon. But besides this, it's worth mentioning that there are not only challenges 2050 horizon. We have the challenges at the moment. The 2022 was a really demanding year, where we all realized that it's not only a problem how to solve these decarbonization targets and how to reach carbon zero neutrality in 2050, but how to keep the security of supply, how to provide energy to be affordable for everyone. So all these together with the climate change also is a big deal, and how to provide the security of supply in the current situation and keep cost competitiveness. So there are many challenges. Energy transition we are talking about cannot be done without financial instruments to reach this decarbonization. We are witnesses in the Western Balkans because we are still dependent on coal very much. That nowadays we have the pressures from European Commission to abandon coal and to dedicate all our attention to renewables. But we are not capable to do it. We need great financial support, which we cannot set aside alone, because of course there is a difference in the economy of European Union and the Western Balkans countries. So not go in details, and you are perfectly aware of it. Now we have to move, but there is a strong commitment to move to renewable sources in the future, and to ensure that in long term we are thinking about replacing coal, replacing all fossil fuels, including gas. But on that journey, we have to ensure that we can cover all of our need for energy, that we also can continue our economic development. Also, there is a social part of the story, how to avoid the social negative effects of coal avoiding, and this is all a topic which is not discussed in a proper way, in my opinion, in a proper way for the Western Balkans country. The just transition without support of European Union, I believe that is hardly possible for us. So there are also many other ways that we can improve we can improve the situation. It's also cross-sector electrification and storage, but also then we come again to do the same problems. But to leave challenges to set aside, this is not only the only thing. We also have opportunities. There is a huge potential of the region in renewable energy, both solar, wind, but also
for consultants like us.
Yes, for hydropower, which also could improve the integration of renewables, which is rather flexible. Huge potential in energy efficiency, implementation of energy efficiency measures. You mentioned that there is a lack of natural gas infrastructure, which should be also used as an intermediate fuel to get through the energy transition process. But as you said, that the natural gas grid is undeveloped, and the existing one is underdeveloped and very old. Just recently we started in Serbia, for example, implementation of project interconnector with Bulgaria, financed by EIB, which is having the possibility to be used for hydrogen transport in the future. But the old pipelines cannot be used. So this is all. Every topic we are talking about as opportunity, you have a opposite side, you have a challenge. So, to be honest, carbon storage, carbon capture and storage, it's still not a topic in the Western Balkans regions. We have more let's say urgent problems at the moment. Also, there is no hydrogen production from renewable power sources, but
neither in Italy.
But we hope it will be soon. We see that this is steadily progressing in the richest countries of the EU, but we hope that this huge potential will be also opportunity for us. I cannot. We are calling it conclusions, but hardly that we can conclude the story here. So you did difficult scenarios, which has to be addressed. At least the policymakers make the targets and set it to be completed in 2050 horizon. And we see what will be the situation, that we will double the electricity production and more than doubling, and also consumption, both. But if we set aside all these problems and work hard, I think that both of these targets, decarbonization and security of energy security, is achievable. But in which percentages? So also this all became more ambitious and more important after the last year crisis. We saw what happened, what also other let's say events like gas, changing routes of gas supply, conflicts could impact stability of the European supply. So we should explore other opportunities like energy efficiency. While we are lacking these alternative supply routes for the natural gas and electricity, we should explore energy efficiency as most let's say as most promising opportunity at the moment. But we have to combine it with digitalization and new technologies. And while we are doing this, we have to avoid heavy social and financial burdens for for all citizens, especially in Western Balkans where the economy is not so strong, and find these solutions we are talking through this digitalization and through this new technology to find a solution for this intermittency in the renewable energy integration, and find adequate sources of finance. And European Union has to help us, at least Western Balkan region. So that would be.
You have also recommendation now.
That would be conclusions. Beside the conclusions, we did this part of recommendations where we put some of the recommendations which are more instant, and how we can act in the, let's say, near time. And this is enhancing and improving energy interconnection use between the countries from the EUSAIR region. So, as you mentioned earlier, in Western Balkans we have, let's say, you said we are well connected. Okay, that's a legacy of former Yugoslavia, but we have to connect also with European Union, with other countries like Albania, and work together to use efficiently these interconnections for trading and using electricity from renewable sources. Okay, grant security of energy supply, also to allow a large-scale deployment of renewable and distributed energy to the transport sector. This is a topic we mentioned several times together. I think it's very important that people which are involved in transport sector also take notice about not use only of electricity. Maybe we are betting on the wrong horse. Maybe the hydrogen is solution. Maybe on the, let's say, should we use compressed natural gas? Should we use LPG, liquefied petrol gas? What to use? Maybe these are better solutions. These are still fossil fuels, but again, better than coal, oil, you know.
Yes.
But we should work on developing of these flexible, efficient, resilient energy systems. This combination of all these measures I'm mentioning.
Okay.
But also policy part and joint strategy like this EUSAIR initiative are good points for development of energy transition, but also, as you said, natural gas deployment and infrastructure.
Okay. So last one.
Again, we are coming to point, including biofuels, but not the food competing one.
No.
Biomethane and hydrogen, biohydrogen. Okay, let's concentrate on the hydrogen. Create an inclusive and participatory environment. Again, we are mentioning energy efficiency potential, but in my opinion, the most important things at the moment that we do the good design of energy programs and projects which will help us achieving this climate neutrality, and then following it work on the targets we set. So coordinated combination of policy measures and governance and fair and just regulatory system has to be also implemented in the non-EU countries, and that's also a big problem. But this is also a recommendation which is very specific for the Western Balkan region.
Okay. Thank you, Peja, grazie. And now, Adam, you are supposed to raise questions or comments, critics. Sorry.
That's okay, David. It's
Scusa,
okay.
mi sono allargato.
Thank you for this wonderful presentation. It was very interesting, and I would like to add just that you present lots of solutions, but certainly all EUSAIR members countries are not at the same level of development, and it would be very interesting to identify which solutions could be when and how implemented in which countries. And I think that this plan could be used as introduction for our work in the next program period of EUSAIR. Now I kindly invite Mr. Adam Balog to share with us his questions, thoughts and comments, but of course and the others to include with their comments and questions.
We have clearly established that this button
yes.
switch off the microphone. Okay, now.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much, dear colleagues Davide, Peja, and Biljana for passing the floor. Of course, I took some notes, but I will not be able to go through all, and it's perhaps dropping up questions to trigger discussion, and also maybe to hear some ideas or answers to those specific points. In some bullet points, I noted down financing gap and how to fill financing gap. I will go into further detail. Role of gas, green hydrogen, nuclear and return to coal last year, and what happened actually during last year with regards to electricity markets in Europe and specifically Germany's policy resulting in what it resulted in and why we returned to coal. Project realization in terms of gas and electricity, the projects which have been listed, security of supply, and infrastructure being hardware, but of course there is also software. So I will select maybe one or two to, these were just my quick thoughts, and then I would perhaps raise one point first, financing gap, which might be the most interesting for our contracting parties, and specifically, of course, open to the floor, but I'm also very much interested in Peja's and Davide's thoughts specifically. So, of course, we have at the core a chicken and egg problem. We have countries where, which are catching up in market functioning, of course, due to implementing the EU regulatory and legislative background. But at the same time, of course, for proper market functioning, you need proper infrastructure. Now, historically, we have had a well-connected electricity grid in the ex-Yugoslavian countries. Of course, about gas that we cannot say the same. And then, of course, we have seen in the scenarios the statistics with regards to Italy, but I would get out Italy from the picture from my intervention point of view as energy community representing the contracting parties. And of course, Italy's economic situation and economic sophistication is on a higher level than that of the non-EU member state Western Balkan countries. But basically, the chicken and egg problem, you need infrastructure for efficient market functioning. But in order to generate that to make that infrastructure happening, you need capital investments. Now, of course, due to the GDP per capita economic situation of the countries, it's much more difficult for our countries to invest in projects which on the surface might not be economically feasible. Maybe such projects would be economically feasible on a market which is already there and liquid and functioning, but we need to create those markets. And we have seen, of course, EIB and EBRD's policy change, understandably in line with the 2050 goals that hydrocarbon projects are not anymore feasible. But at the same time, we have to note, of course, the the economic and investment plan to support the economic recovery of the Western Balkans, 2020 communication from the European Commission, which identified actually flagship projects which are worthy for support from the European Commission eventually as well, which is actually happening through Western Balkans and other schemes. But then, to sum up all this, which might be sounding a bit messy, but coming to the point, how can we ensure that the financing gap is closed, or what do you see, or what options would you see, apart from all that we know, Western Balkan Investment Framework, Connecting Europe Facility, but all with their lots of limitations either with availability of funds or either with regards to eligibility of projects. Yes, that would be one point which I raised throughout listening to the presentation. Thank you, and maybe perhaps one or two other points then.
Thank you, Adam. Do we have any other questions or comments? Any thoughts? I must say that I must use now this opportunity to say that in the case of Serbia, we are finalized our draft of NECP, and this document is under the process of public consultations. And the next week we will have 3 public hearings in Belgrade, Novi Sad, and Niš. But one of the most interesting results of our analysis on NECP was that we need a lot of funds in the field of energy efficiency, and basically energy efficiency is the key which have influence and on the realization of our proposed targets for 2030, and more than 60% of projected investment costs are referred to energy efficiency. So I think that probably this is the similar situation, and in the neighborhood countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina or North Macedonia or Montenegro, and besides security of supply and some other issues, I think that the funds are really important issue which could be solved in the next period if we want to realize our targets. I think that the willing to be in accordance with the green agenda is not under the question, but funds are really obstacles in on this way to provide the results which should support green agenda. So now, to be in accordance with our time plan, I propose to move. Sorry? Oh, sorry, I didn't see. Yes, please.
Maybe push something, try to press some buttons on your...
Thank you. In fact, Adam, with your intervention, you just complicated the thoughts, because at the end, just made it more difficult. The key issue remains the financing, and in this regard, I would like to say that EU is not being coherent in this regard. Last week, in WBIF operating board, it was decided that with grants, there is no intention to support any more generation of energy from renewable sources, because it is considered by the board that those are bankable projects. But at the same time, even EU, to us, imposes fiscal rules regarding the debt ceiling, which put us in a sandwich situation. They are ready to support more in transmission, which for me looks a little contradictory, because if the generation is bankable, the transmission of this bankable source should be bankable as well. For me, it's very difficult to ask Albanian taxpayers to pay a loan which will be taken by the government for a transmission line, because production projects financed from EIB or EBRD should be returned to the investors. So this is the first coherence. Second, as you mentioned, in one side, EU wants to push Ionian Adriatic gas pipeline, but on the other side, the board of the IFIs has decided they are not going anymore to finance gas projects. Saying those, even when you mention a lot that we should adapt our systems based on the market, this means that even the product will be on market price. But do you believe that our economies and our societies are able to buy electricity for households or for SMEs with a European market price? So we should not forget the affordability of the electricity, which it is not a human right, is a basic need for all the further developments. And also, I believe, for the cohesion of the societies as well. Last year, all European governments was forced to take different measures, going a little bit against the traditional rules of market economy. I don't know what is the outcome, but I know that an Italian provider appealed to court for the windfall tax that the Italian government issued last year, and I believe the outcome of this court decision might influence the behavior of all the decisions that we are going to take. So in this regard, I believe more pressure should be done to the EU to provide more funds on this specific issue in Europe, keeping in mind that this part of Europe, which is, let's say, the southeast, due to the solar, could become the battery for Europe. It was last month a discussion on the north countries of Europe with the wind. The same could be done there. And I believe €1 of investment from EU funds in an area where we have 2,300 hours of sun per year is much more worth than somewhere in North Europe where you have 3 times less the sun. Thank you.
Thank you. And Professor Sergio Gariba has also some comments. Professor?
Yes, thank you, Biljana. I would like to say that the master plan, for the first time is considering, say, the year 2050 as the time horizon. We had a long discussion about this within our subgroup on energy networks. The subgroup on energy networks is one of the 2 subgroups according to which the Pillar 2 is organized. The choice was not easy because at that time, countries and most of our projects were looking at the year 2030. and beyond that. Then we made the decision, which was shared by all our countries, to consider what might happen towards the year 2050. Then we had the European Green Deal, and the year 2050 became a reality, or say something which has been accepted. I would like to say this because to some extent, I mean, our master plan is first of the kind. So it's an attempt. It can be improved, the scenarios can be changed. Of course, the scenarios are subjective, but I mean, we have to consider the long term. Most of the energy projects, the large infrastructure projects, develop their, say, impacts over long period of times. I mean, the investments are recovered over 10, 20, even more years. So we have to understand, I mean, what might happen, say, with this type of horizon. I have simply a remark. This is not a question, but this is to explain to you why we selected the year 2050. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sergio. Davide?
May I reply?
Yes.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you for your suggestions that were very important in defining our master plan. I want just to a brief comment after what I heard, the comment from a representative from Albania, the comment from Adam, and I also take the opportunity to thank all the three coordinators of our subgroup, Biljana, Goran, and Sergio. What I'm sure, and I want to express it very loudly, is that Europe needs development. It needs to expand its economy in order then to find a better way to finance all these projects. There is a need of finance, of investment, and these investments are coming only if we ease the pressure of interest rates that is coming from inflation, that is coming from a very weak economic expansion. And I'm telling it because I'm from Italy, the country that is the most indebted and the one that has the most urgent need to expand. And at the end, this energy transition and the expansion of the grids is an opportunity to achieve this expansion. So please go ahead with the EUSAIR project. Thank you.
Thank you, Davide. Now we can move to the second topic, EUSAIR roadmap towards EUSAIR power exchange and natural gas trading hub for the Adriatic and Ionian region. And the presenter is Mr. Guido Cervini from DFS Economics Italy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can I have my presentation on, please? Okay. Thank you again. Our project was supposed to be a classic roadmap project, and roadmap projects are characterized by basically 2 or 3 standard questions. Where do we want to go? What are the actions that we need to do to get there? And if there are choices, as there usually are, what is the best way? Actually, what is the best place to end, and what is the best way to get there? In this case, we were faced with... what do you do to... Okay. We were faced with a relatively different, specific situation due to a combination of, on the one hand, the evolution of the market institutions in Europe, on the other hand, the degree of acceptance of those institutions by the EUSAIR countries, also by the energy community. And therefore, in a sense, our roadmap project is a bit peculiar because it investigates the relationship between the fundamental of the industry, the concept of regional market that in the political discussion has a particular appeal and is a recurring theme, and the market institutions. So we investigated these three corners, fundamentals, institutions, and concept of regional market, to try and see whether the pattern we are already on, i.e. implementation in the EUSAIR countries of the European framework market organization in electricity and gas, might face specific reasons of delay or specific reasons for poor effectiveness or poor efficiency. And we reach a conclusion that I will spoil right now, that says that we don't find any specific reasons why the European framework should not be the way to achieve regional integration. But in doing so, I think we contributed in a relatively original way in explaining and showing why this is the case, i.e. why the European framework is completely suitable to achieve not only regional integration, but also regional integration as the byproduct of pan-European integration of energy markets. So this is how our project was organized. We first reviewed the fundamentals of the electricity and gas sectors in the Adriatic-Ionian region. We didn't do that independently, we just borrowed for the other work streams of the research. Then we analyzed the EU policy regulatory framework for electricity and gas markets, and I tried to identify specific implications for the EUSAIR countries. Then we assessed the current status of development of the market institutions, energy market institutions in the Adriatic-Ionian region. And finally, as all roadmap projects should do, we identify the actions that are necessary to integrate those markets into Europe and among themselves. On the fundamentals of the electricity and gas sectors in the region, the noticeable elements are that the countries of the EUSAIR countries have different market sizes, and the largest markets are already highly integrated and highly compliant with the EU policy framework, and therefore those countries are obvious drivers in a sense. Then another element that we consider as a part of the fundamentals is the role of the gas, of natural gas in the different EUSAIR countries. And there what we noticed is that for at least 4 countries, North Macedonia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro and Albania, the use of gas as an interim primary source during the transition is not obvious because they're using very little gas now, so they could just jump to a completely non-gas industry in a sense. So that's a political decision there that will affect the fundamentals of the industry. Then, okay. Then again on the fundamentals, we looked at the networks, and what we saw is that the future of the gas network, in the area pretty much depends on investments that have been announced, but that are not all obviously going to be implemented, or that it is not certain whether they will be implemented. And that has implications for the scope of a regional market, in that if there is no interconnection among the countries, the market is not regional. So pretty much of how regional the market will be depends on whether those investments will be realized, implemented. Electricity is different because the network is already relatively highly meshed and integrated. Therefore, the issue of a regional market on electricity, in a sense, is already a given. Now, this is just as a preamble. That doesn't mean, in a sense, fundamentals do not have an impact on market design. So having a sound market design is an independent issue from how many transactions will take place and between whom these transactions will take place. However, we looked at the fundamentals because fundamentals are relevant for whether the market will be regional or will be national. Now, moving to institutions and therefore market design, that was perhaps the center of our work. We reviewed the EU policy framework for gas and electricity, and we noticed that because of the commitments taken via the energy community, the EUSAIR countries have already, in a sense, decided that the path for integration goes through implementation of the European framework. Now, the only point, the relevant point that remained open is this framework suitable to implement integration of the market in that area, or is it not? And just to assess this, what we did was look at the main features of the European market design, let us call it target model, if you like, for gas and electricity. Starting from gas, we found that the two pillars of the European market design is, first, a harmonized tariff methodology for network services, transportation services, that is harmonized in that it is entry-exit, it is not path-dependent, at least within large market areas, but at the same time leaves the different states with some degrees of freedom on where to allocate the network costs, how and where, I would say, to allocate network costs. The second pillar of the European gas market design is the transmission capacity allocation system that is reasonably efficient. I mean, if there is available capacity, that capacity is made available to market participants quickly in a transparent way, and if it becomes scarce, it's allocated via auctions. And those auctions are centralized. Therefore, they are reasonably efficient. I mean, there is no reason to believe that they are not efficient. So the result of that at the European level is great price convergence in the different European market hubs, countries, and that's a signal of success. It's a signal of success that is achieved with a framework, with a market design that is relatively unintrusive with respect to the national way transactions, the way in which transactions are organized and balancing is organized in the different nations. That's a good outcome because it means that the European framework in gas can be implemented by EUSAIR countries without any major constraints on the way transactions are carried out in those countries. Then actually the market by itself tends to create harmonization of trading arrangements and also balancing arrangements, etc. But it is not mandatory. It is the outcome of the traders wanting to trade. Electricity is a slightly different story because electricity, for the nature of the product, requires more structured trading arrangements. But still, the European trading arrangements for electricity, with their several multiple limits, at least they have one virtue. They are designed under the objective of allowing each state implementing them to be as free as possible under the constraint that cross-border transactions require coordination. So you have many degrees of freedom that are exercised at the national level in terms of product definition, set of constraints that are implemented in spot markets. And then there is an overlaying layer of coordination that is necessary to exploit all the possibilities to create value by moving electricity from one country to another. Now, how do we assess the European market design, and in particular with respect to its possible implementation in EUSAIR countries? Well, the assessment is it's not bad at all. It has ensured for more than, I think now 15 years, a relatively high consistency, a total consistency between the direction of the flows and the relative prices of electricity. I mean, electricity goes by definition, by construction, from where it costs less to where it is valued more. It has therefore allocated interconnection capacity efficiently. It has provided for a fair allocation of congestion rents when they result from the market outcome, allocation among countries. And it has constrained the way the national markets are designed, yes, to some extent, but to the minimum possible extent that was compatible with trading cross-border. When we move to the other institution the other crucial institution of electricity market that will become even more crucial in the future, intraday markets, the European choice again was perhaps more complicated than necessary, but for a reason. And the reason again was to leave member states relatively as free as possible, actually I would say no, as free as possible, under the constraint that transactions must be done, and therefore a certain level of coordination is necessary. So what you see is that the single intraday market coupling system implemented in Europe allows for the two usually alternative ways to carry out transactions to coexist. And the two alternative ways are continuous trading that is implemented under the framework of XBID in the intraday market in Europe. And the alternative model is auctions, non-discriminatory auctions that are basically what they're used in the intraday market, that also can be implemented by countries in the intraday time frame, as they do in the day-ahead market. Therefore, even in this respect, the slightly complicated single intraday market in Europe is designed to make everyone happy. And so from the perspective of EUSAIR countries, you couldn't have more flexibility than what there is there. Because what we are facing now, the set of institutions that we have in Europe now, were basically built under this great constraint that everyone was supposed to do whatever they want, under the constraint of doing transactions. So what is our assessment? Our assessment is, first of all, that the EU market design for gas and electricity is well established, under any metrics effective, and it has proved reliable. Its implementation in all EUSAIR countries can leverage on experience of other countries, other EU countries, some of them being already part of EUSAIR, and that experience can save a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of mistakes. As one of the responsible for the design of the Italian market, I can list a long list of mistakes that can be avoided by the newcomers. Then the EU market design is as flexible as it can be in terms of ability to accommodate national specific needs or features. And finally, implementation of the EU framework in the EUSAIR would result as a byproduct as a full regionally integrated market, provided the fundamentals support a regional market, i.e. provided there is enough interconnection, both in gas and in electricity. Now, current status of market development in the Adriatic Ionian region. Well, what are the relevant questions to assess whether the EUSAIR market is integrated or not, or is compliant or not with the EU framework? What are the things that we looked at? Well, first of all, we verified first of all, if there is and how it works, a virtual trading point for gas. Is it established or not? All EU countries have virtual trading points. Some of EUSAIR countries have virtual trading points. Setting up virtual trading points is not difficult at all. Second, we checked whether the tariff system is compliant. Are entry-exit tariff implemented? In most cases, yes. Finally, is transmission capacity allocated in a transparent, effective, and efficient manner? Well, that's not always the case, but here again, Europe provides the solutions, because what you have to do to achieve that result is just join one of the three, but basically there is only one big Prisma capacity allocation platform, and you're done. Second, on electricity, what did we look at? Are there national power exchanges established? The answer, as we will see, is in most cases yes. Are those exchanges part of the European coupled market? That means, again, you don't have to do anything. You just join the European platform, day ahead or intraday. And the other question was, is the ancillary service market of the country integrated with the pan-European platforms? Well, that's the last stage of integration. Honestly, it's not even that urgent. There are these platforms, and joining those platforms is indeed possible. That's a matter for system operators more than for market operators. So let's just skip this. And what are the actions needed then? Well, the actions are, this is the good news that comes with the bad news. Okay, the bad news is this perception that there is a framework that one has to buy. But as I mentioned, the framework is highly flexible, and there is not many others around in the world. The good news is that the framework is highly developed, so implementing the framework in EUSAIR countries is pretty easy, because basically it boils down to joining international European platforms. First of all, once you have created the national power exchanges and they satisfy the requisites to become NEMOs, nominated electricity market operators, basically integration with the single day-ahead integrated European market is straightforward. Not only that, also implementation can be made easy, because there is a formula according to which an existing power exchange can become the manager of the market zone of, for example, small markets, and therefore implementation is basically entrusting the role of matching demand and supply to another trustworthy system operator in the context of the integrated market. Forward trading, again, there is not much to invent, because most of the forward trading in electricity, and this also for gas, takes place at EEX, where products for delivery everywhere in Europe are traded. Therefore, there's not to invent a local forward market. You just quote your product in the place where everybody goes to trade. Unless there is a big issue of national pride, this is what traders want, and this is what reasonably should happen. Also, intraday trading for electricity. The system is highly centralized, the European system. What do you need to join? You basically go there, satisfy some requisites, build an interface with the centralized system, and you're done. I don't want to simplify. I just want to stress that it is all implementation. It is not decision. There is really little to decide. Gas, it is not very different because the regulatory framework is simpler. It just requires joining the capacity allocation platform and having a virtual trading point. Again, forward trading, that is even more important for gas, is highly centralized in a couple of markets in Europe where products for delivery everywhere are traded. It's done. It's done. It's done because this is the results of our investigation into the current state of implementation of the European framework in EUSAIR countries. And I would say, to be quick, with the exception of Bosnia and Herzegovina, about which we heard about great progress to come soon, we are very well placed. I mean, much has been done, relatively little remains to be done, and this little in particular relates to the gas sector in some countries. I'm done, and I will leave the rest of the time for the discussion.
Thank you, Guido. And
thank you.
It was very, very detailed presentation and analysis, and we have a few minutes for Mr. Adam Balog and his comments and suggestions.
Yes, thank you. Who am I to question or pose questions to the findings of Mr. Potočnik? Right? Anyhow, thank you very much for this systematic overview, and I can only agree as someone from the Energy Community Secretariat ex officio with the finding that the European Union regulatory and legislative framework is there, and it has to be implemented in line with the provisions of course, of the Treaty of the Energy Community based on the European Union existing pieces of legislation. So there, the institutional framework with the Energy Community is set. The obligations on the contracting parties actually, based on the proposals from the European Commission, are there. You have also quoted the decisions made by the Ministerial Council and the secondary pieces of legislation to come and be accepted there as well. So only to agree on that part, and also to promise that we will continue doing our work and push for the implementation and help in the process our contracting parties. With regards to again, very much agree with the completely different situation on the gas and electricity markets in our contracting parties. Gas is single source, that single source is external. Market functioning is restricted, if I might say so, in certain countries. Of course, we have, again, steps to make there, but additional sources which might be accessible through infrastructure which are being built or have been built in the recent past might be actually helping to open somehow the markets because there is motivation, and not to mention the impacts of the latest geopolitical change and the war in Ukraine, which gives an extra push perhaps for enhanced market functioning also on the gas market, at least in the countries where there is gas. And whether gas would be available for new countries, that has been discussed with the previous one. And maybe perhaps one question which might be interesting to see your thoughts about. When comparing, of course, Italy and our Western Balkan contracting parties with regards to the electricity markets, and specifically with regards to the generation fleet, of course, we can see the need for CapEx investment Very much so, of course, not that in Italy it's not needed, but in Western Balkans we have, in certain cases, of course, the decades-old coal-fired power plants, which are amortized, their capex has been written off. That's not part of the electricity price anymore. Of course, that's the reason why Western Balkan countries could be exporting competitively to the EU member states, of course, with the negative externality of CO2 emission, which the CBAM will or will not prevent, depending on the conditions met or not met. But here, knowing that it's inevitable to have capex investment and an investment wave must come, be it renewables or be it existing plants refurbishment or be it gas or whatever, how do you see this need for investment might impact the, maybe not good word, willingness for implementation of market reforms, or in order to have those investments coming in, it's inevitable to have the market functioning being there in order to have private investors coming in? Thank you very much. With that, I give back the floor.
Okay, now I can speak. Oh, well, thank you for your comments, and I might say that since Alberto Potocnik is not here, you could have afforded minor criticisms. But thank you anyway. I will tell Alberto that he is still an authority even in his absence. On your question, though, I understand and I perceive this trade-off between market institutions being there, investments, and risk of adverse distributional effects. Let's put it this way. I think this is not a problem of the EUSAIR area only. To a large extent, it was a European problem during the gas crisis, in the opposite way, if you see what I mean. And it is the same problem we see everywhere, basically. There is an area of institutional activity that, in my opinion, we are too shy to talk about, that is capacity remuneration mechanisms, that should be, I think Europe should be a bit braver to discuss and to develop, because capacity remuneration mechanisms are indeed the way to attract investment, but at the same time, if properly designed, they can control to a large extent the allocation of the rents that are obtained in spot markets. Therefore, basically in exchange for moving some of the risk from the investors to the consumers. It is not ideal. I think in this respect, once in many cases, Italy did well, because we have a reasonably good mechanism that we basically copied by Latin America. So, but at least we implemented it properly. And the result of that is that investors obtain certainty of their return, at least to a large extent. On the other, in exchange for that, investors accept that any massive rents that they might collect in exceptional situations, or because of political decisions in other areas of the industry, those rents would be given back to consumers. So if I have to suggest a direction to look at to make markets compatible with investment attraction and control of unwanted rent allocations, I would look at the capacity remuneration mechanisms. Not sure this is a very popular view in the European sort of Brussels context, but I think we're getting there anyway.
Yes, and thank you, Guido. And we have also comments from Professor.
No, just to add to
Okay.
what just Guido said, that you didn't mention, you are not so brave to take the commitment to say that in the future, this world that will produce electricity only through renewable energy sources will be based on a capacity remuneration mechanism. Am I correct or not?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, looking into the future is a difficult exercise. It would be good if it wasn't necessary. However, I think reality is showing that it is necessary. Whether this is a temporary solution because we need to implement the transition and keep alive the thermal units until we have enough renewables and batteries, or whether it is a permanent, a new order of the market, if you like, I don't know. For the only market that will be there once all the non-renewables will be dismissed, I don't know. If demand becomes flexible, then you might not even need capacity remuneration mechanisms. Until that happens, I hardly see how you can do without.
Okay.
No, però questo non è giusto.
Okay, thank you. Now, Professor Sergio.
Yes, thank you, Biljana. I would like to compliment economics for the study. I want to say a few words regarding the framework. I mean, the study has been made by former regulators. Say Guido Cervini was in the Regulatory Authority of Italy. Then you saw the name of Alberto Potocnik. He was the head of the agency, European Agency for the Coordination of Energy Regulators, EUSAIR, which is located in Ljubljana. Now, there is a question, who's regulating the regulators? But I will never reply to this question. Anyway, I should say that this study is first of a kind. I mean, there was a lot of discussion concerning the region between or amongst the regulators on how to move forward. But we never saw any study with a roadmap and actions. I mean, the case was put forward by Western Balkan 6, the so-called Berlin process. So there is the idea of a single market, but the idea was never developed. I mean, in the energy community, we have the regulatory board. Again, I mean, a lot of discussion, but we never saw a study, I mean, deploying, I mean, the measures, the steps which are necessary in order to integrate and harmonize, say, the markets of the region into the European market. I mean, there is a general problem of governance of the energy transition, and the study which has been made, in our view, is an essential element. We had a lot of discussion with my colleague Biljana, with Goran, who left, and I mean, the members, the standing members of the subgroup on energy networks, on what to do. And eventually we came to a decision. I think, I mean, now everyone is agreeing upon that. We are happy about the results of our decision. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Sergio. And I think that we have also questions or comments from Mr. Ilir Begay.
Thank you. Let me come back again to the market. This bottle of water in a cheaper market cost about 30 cents. The same bottle in Piazza San Marco is at least 10 euro. The cost of manufacturing is the same. But the market could afford that, could be sold with this huge discrepancy. So again, when we come back to the market, we have to consider the affordability of the households and of the SMEs, at least. And in order to satisfy the private investors, we could not complicate all the fiscal framework of our government budgets. Coming back to the presentation before, okay, you said that the grid is well developed. Probably you are considering all the countries which come from the former Yugoslavia, but Albania has not been a former Yugoslavia country. So in this case, even the projects which are necessary for us, I believe there are three important ones which are needed. We are working, has become already part of the National Single Project Pipeline, which is the interconnection with Greece. Fear to Greece, Arketiko is the place, 92 million euro. Vaudeus Podgorica in Montenegro with 60 million euro. And still we are considering Brindisi, Valona-Brindisi submarine, 310 million euro. Keeping in mind that already Regione Puglia has expressed an interest for a water pipeline from Valona to Brindisi. On the other side, our plan is to become energy independent by 2029. Already this month, we finished the auction on 100 mega on wind. Already given the permission for 500 mega solar. Half of them are under purchase power agreement. We plan to come installed by 3 years 1.5 giga on new renewables, solar and wind, which will produce 3 tera annually. And for this, we believe the 3 interconnection lines that I mentioned should be part of the network that you envisaged at one of the first slides of presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we should move on the next topic, USR labeled projects for energy networks, where we have a few, let's say, panelists. The introduction will give Professor Sergio. We have also project leaders, Mr. Luca Schiapati, Mr. Salvatore Lanza, and Mr. Goran Nikolovsky. And discussant is Mr. Davide Tabarelli. Professor Gariba, please.
Yes, thank you, Biljana. Okay. Thank you, Biljana. Thank you, Goran. First, I would like to thank Nomisma Energia for the help which was given by Davide and Olana, who was there, for the preparation of the book on the projects regarding, say, the energy networks. However, I think it has some meaning to go back in time when EUSAIR started. So we had a governing board meeting in Ancona at the Seaport Hotel. Now Donatella is there. She was not in the hotel at that time. Anyway, so we had a discussion during the governing board meeting about what to do. And the discussion continued during, say, our first thematic steering group meeting regarding Pillar 2 in Trieste. What to do? I mean, of course, we had the action plan. So we had someone from the European Investment Bank, others from the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And they were telling us, I mean, we would like to invest in the, say, Ionian Adriatic countries, in the Western Balkan countries. We have to invest upon projects. So the decision was made, and the decision was shared by energy and transport side to prepare books, I mean, collection of projects. The projects, in principle, should be bankable, which means they can be proposed to the public and the private investment system, and they can be financed. I mean, this will be the final end. I should say we are far away from this. Anyway, I mean, the discussion was going to continue. In the case of Italy, I should say I share the view with a friend of mine, Gilberto Dialuce, who was at the time, he's there, who was at the time Director General for, say, energy supply and energy security. Gilberto is great. I mean, he's now no more Director General, but he's the head of our agency for technology, innovation, energy, and environment. He's the president. Anyway, thank you, Gilberto, again. So we had a discussion now, I mean, to collect the projects. There was work at the time done by the energy community. So we exchanged views with the energy community, and eventually we decided how to collect the projects. Now, I'll be providing you with a few elements regarding what we did. First, I mean, the book of the EUSAIR level projects on energy networks, and the same criterion applies. I mean, I hope Pierluigi is agreeing upon that on transport. Projects with a high positive impact. In the case of energy, enhancing the security of energy, promoting sustainable energy development, this is a good lip service, increasing energy competitiveness and contributing to face and confront climate change. Of course, I mean, the book and the projects are collected according to criteria. And we have guiding principles which were defined by the EUSAIR Governing Board on February 2018. Anyway, the projects which are approved and which receive the EUSAIR level, to some extent they are certified by the EUSAIR, respond to 6 broad criteria and to energy-specific criteria. The 6 broad criteria, I mean, are, as you can see, addressing the priorities, demonstrating transnational and macro-regional scope or impact, be realistic and credible, building, this is an important element, upon existing initiatives, experience, and have reached a fair degree of maturity. So the projects cannot be paperwork. They should pay attention to the cross-cutting aspects, especially environmental and social aspects, and be coherent and mutually supportive. Then in the thematic steering group, we defined, I mean, specific criteria. The specific criteria are 10. The first tier of specific criteria, I think the more important, are increasing the energy security, responding and coping with climate change concerns, enhancing the competitiveness, we saw that, allowing for the involvement of local entrepreneurs. There should be a way in order to, say, foster, I mean, the local and the national, I would say, progress and enterprise capabilities. They should be consistent with proposals which are made by other multilateral organizations which are insisting upon the same area, such as the Energy Community, Western Balkan 6, and others as well. So, I mean, in principle, you can see the chicken. Anyway, the projects we have are organized according to clusters. Why? I mean, the clusters have a strategic meaning, and within each cluster, there are several specific projects. In the case of energy, our, say, collection of projects is going from 30 to 40. Anyway, the clusters we have are 10. I'll be talking about a few clusters to tell you why they are important. First is the Trans-Balkan Electricity Corridor. Trans-Balkan Electricity Corridor is linking, let us say, the south to the north. So it's a corridor which is moving electricity along the 2 directions and integrating, I would say, the entire Balkan region into the European system from one side, then we have Greece and other countries on the other. Next, the Trans-Adriatic power interconnectors. The Trans-Adriatic is a sea. We have now two, say, power interconnectors where electricity is following along the two directions. One is between Italy and Montenegro. The other one is between Italy and Greece. Now, the two interconnectors were designed years ago. We are working on the doubling of those interconnectors, so the electricity exchanges will become much more important, should you wish, and much more frequent. Next is harnessing offshore renewable energy potential. Why? I mean, we are talking about wind energy. I mean, wind energy can be produced offshore in order not to impact on land. There are systems in order to do that. Greece was making a very intelligent and interesting proposal, and this is a project. Next is the Trans-Balkan gas ring. Now, you saw from the master plan presented by Davide that not all the countries, in the region are relying upon natural gas. Anyway, natural gas is an energy source for the energy transition because of the low carbon content. The Trans-Balkan gas ring is linking the countries along or around the Balkan region into a system so the countries can help each other. And we call, this a ring. Next is a project of great strategic importance, which is the Ionia-Adriatic gas pipeline. This pipeline would go along the Adriatic, the eastern Adriatic coast, linking, say, Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, and it will be linked to Slovenia, of course, and Greece on the other side. Then, important, you'll see now, the presentation, we have the Trans-Adriatic gas pipeline, which is one of the projects which has been implemented during our mandate, and now we are talking about the doubling. This is extremely important given, say, the new, let us call, geopolitical situation. Gas supplies from Russia are going to diminish. They might be phased out, perhaps, and we need other natural gas supplies. This is a supply coming from Azerbaijan, from the Caspian Sea, into Europe. And there are branches, and it has a strategic value. We have the North Macedonia gas interconnectors. They will be described by Goran Nikolowski later on. Next is the East Med gas pipeline. This project is bringing natural gas from the southeastern Mediterranean Sea into Europe. So it will go, in principle, across Cyprus, Crete, Greece, and Italy, and to Northern Europe as well. Finally, we have the infrastructure development for liquefied natural gas. Liquefied natural gas became a key asset to ensure energy security. So LNG will be in the future of the Balkan system, the Adriatic, Ionian countries, Italy, Europe as well. And you can see infrastructures, logistic, which is referring to LNG. LNG is interesting because it's direct uses and because of the possibility of the transition from LNG to hydrogen, which is our future. Finally, we have a soft measure, which is the Balkan Energy School for the regulators. We have to share our experiences, to stay together, to become friends, And this type of a school, in our view, is representing a good element. Again, which are the main challenges? Project financing should be improved. So we need that the projects are bankable, and private and public financing should be identified. Why? I mean, the projects we are talking about have a value of billions of euros. If you are considering the economies of the Western Balkan countries, they are relatively small. So we have to find ways in order to finance. There are ways which are equity participation, concessional agreements, loans. All of this should be studied and should be examined. Next are the priorities in need of continuing redefinition. We have a list of EUSAIR level projects. This list applies, to the situation as it is today, as we see it today. The situation is changing and moving. So the long-term scenarios are important. The scenarios which are presented in the master plan, were important, and we have to work on the scenarios. Finally, we have to continue, in our view, work on what we call the outlooks, the master plans, roadmaps, assessment studies, where, our countries stay together and they may share their policy priorities and objectives. Energy project for the future, new issues. We have important soft measures. A point of, let us say, a critical point is the public awareness and social acceptance. Quite a few projects require social acceptance. Then there are the new ideas, twinning between countries, association of countries from the region into the technology programs of the European Union, such as the Horizon program. These are all actions that we have to consider in our next future. Now we will have the three project leaders, I'll say Luca, Salvatore, and Goran, presenting, I'll say, three projects as examples. We don't want to annoy you with the list of the 30 projects. This will be useless. It is much better to focus on three examples. Thank you for the attention. So, yes, Luca, where is it?
Taking this one.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So thank you, Professor Ribba. Thank you, Davide. Thank you all for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here with you and to discuss this opportunity. Grazie. So, yes, in 2000, at the end of 2020, we were able to start the operation of our pipeline. And I think that it was the right moment, because I think that what happened after our operation, the crisis coming from the scarcity of natural gas and other energy sources connected to the fact that a lot of investment is not being progressed, the fact that we had the COVID-19, the pandemic, and the fact then the geopolitical situation get worse, created really a situation where the opportunity to have a new connection with a sort of new source, a new route, was absolutely fundamental for Europe, starting from Greece and Italy. We represented in 2022 15% of the gas supply to Italy, with almost 10 billion cubic meter of gas. We have just passed through an important milestone. We have transported 25 billion cubic meter of gas to Europe meaning Greece, Italy, and Bulgaria. So I think that, and more than 21 to Italy. So I think this was the right moment to have this infrastructure in operation. I think that what is really important is that this infrastructure that was designed probably with the concept of relying mainly on the long-term capacity, a sort of clear view that for 25 years we would have transported as a first phase 10 BCM immediately when the crisis started. It was clear that our role should have been to do more than this. So thank you to the availability of gas from Azerbaijan, from the Caspian Basin, and thanks to a strong coordination along the corridor as a company, as an infrastructure, we were able really to focus on the possibility to further use the short-term concept. And as Professor Cervini were explaining, leverage on the auction on Prisma, leverage on the possibility of developing the opportunity, we were able really to become not only a player that is transporting the gas upon our long-term gas transportation agreement, but also to develop a new concept, so to really organize and develop product and services leveraging on this auction in Prisma, in order that now more than 30 registered party or shippers are really using our infrastructure. And if I think to the result of last year, where we should have expected to transport to Italy 8 billion cubic meters of gas, and we transported 10, it means that we encountered the interest of the market. And this is continue in an important way. The other important change was when finally we were able to have the interconnector Greece-Bulgaria starting the operation. This was a real game changer in October 2022 because through TAP we were able to start to supply Bulgaria, and from Bulgaria many other countries up to Moldova, and so representing a great opportunity to start really supplying the area of the Balkans with an alternative source and with an alternative route. Since I joined TAP, of course, there was the idea of the Ionian Adriatic pipeline. We continue to support this, we continue to coordinate, we continue with the support of our shareholder to think that Ionian Adriatic pipeline would represent a great opportunity. As it was mentioned before, if we look at the map of the gas pipeline in the area, we see that in that area there's a big gap. And the need of infrastructure is a priority. Only by developing more infrastructure, only by interconnecting the different countries, only by having a situation of redundancy of infrastructure, we can really manage the possibility to have a competitive, affordable, sustainable security of supply, because we have to continue to work together in this. So we represent really a sort of backbone in the region, and we should continue to develop any opportunity for the different country to be developed. We are working now in collaboration with our friends in Albania to probably start the gasification of Albania soon, I hope, connecting a certain area of Albania. There are also projects relevant to LNG that are under assessment because we recognize the role of LNG, but what is important is that we continue to have an infrastructure able to be a catalyst and to ensure that new interconnection can be built. Since the starting of our project, since the design of our project, the design was develop in order to ensure that we could expand our capacity up to more than 20 billion cubic meter per year. In reality, we can do even more than this, depending on many solutions that we can implement. This is a process driven by the market. It's not a decision taken by our company, by our shareholder. It's a market-driven process. This is a process that is driven through what we call market test or open season. We had already one successful market test in January. I would say, a small expansion trigger, 1.2 BCM, coming both from the Caspian Sea, but also from Greece, and then supplying additional gas to Italy and additional gas to Albania. And this will be probably the first example where we deliver gas to Albania to supply a power plant that is under project. We will continue to have other opportunity with this market test. There will be another one at the end of the year, and we started this Monday, the 3rd of July, together with other auction. We started also the new market test 2023. What is important on our side is not only to follow this process, this regulated, transparent, and non-discriminatory process in a sort of bureaucratic way, but our role should really continue to be to offer to the market alternative, flexibility, and to accommodate the need. One of the complexity of today's situation of the market, and one of the complexity is that we know how to develop a new supply of gas implies significant investment, implies the need for the supplier to sign long-term supply agreement, implies a corridor, a complete corridor to develop, implies a gas transportation agreement. So it's a complex process. In the first phase, this process took many, many years. Now what we are trying to do with our partner and with our shippers and suppliers is try to fast track all this process in order to be ready as soon as possible. You know how we've been recognizing within the REPowerEU that try to diversify, among other things, that are absolutely more important. We try to diversify the supply to Europe by 27. A memorandum of understanding was signed by European Commission and the Republic of Azerbaijan. So all of this is really representing a key sort of framework that allow us and help us to support this. So our role will continue to try and, I would say, provide multiple scenario of expansion to our to the market, to our potential shipper. The other element that is important to me to represent today is that we should not consider only security of supply, but we should consider long-term sustainability of this kind of infrastructure, this kind of corridor. And to us, the net zero, being consistent with the European Green Deal, being consistent with the Paris Agreement is a priority. And we consider that through the expansion of the capacity of our pipeline, we can not only increase the security of supply of the country that we cross, but we could also achieve the possibility to achieve in the long term the net zero. So what is our ideas? Our ideas are to, of course, to be ready for the transport of the green molecule, and first of all hydrogen. That's why we started studying solution, testing our material, developing gap analysis. We think that we should develop the regulatory framework for the biometer. There is a lot of potential in this area to produce biometer. So the idea is to ensure that in the medium to long term, the infrastructure that we are building or expanding as was mentioned also before, are infrastructure that will ensure step by step the fact that the energy that we are transporting is more and more green. But we have also started with our shareholder a concept of transforming our operation, ensuring that we can reduce significantly the carbon footprint of our operation. So the idea that we are developing, and that probably if there will be interest from the market, and if there will be the support of our shareholder, will be also to think that the new investment that we are doing for expanding our capacity will be driven by a concept of electrifying our compressor station. That is why, because this is probably the easiest way to ensure that we are not producing carbon dioxide, we are really not emitting and impacting on greenhouse emission. And this is really something that immediately impacts, and I'm pleased that this concept has been developed and represents a priority. This means that in the areas of Balkans, it's really important to develop not only the pipeline infrastructure, the solution, the LNG, the regasification plant, and a lot have been done in Greece, a lot have been done in Croatia. I hope that something can be can be developed in Albania, and we are working for it. I will fly again Tirana next week to discuss it with all the partners we are working with. But also that the electrical connection are developed. Today, there are a lot of projects relevant to renewable, and all these projects can work in coordination and with the support of gas that is supporting in a certain way the, I would say, stability of the supply of the energy in the country. We really need to continue to strengthen the electrical grids. And as now we are discussing and assessing what is in Albania, what is in Greece, what is present, we really understand how the reinforcement of the electrical grids is still an important milestone to be achieved. So I think, and I conclude here to leave the place to the other colleagues, that I really appreciate Professor Gariba and all of you, your plan, because your plan is really combining and focusing upon your pillars and criteria, what is really important. So from our industrial point of view, from our business point of view, we see really the need to continue to work to develop not only the gas infrastructure, but the electrical infrastructure. There are areas of Greece, there are areas of Albania, the countries where we work, that absolutely require a lot of investment, requires a lot of funding, and requires a lot of development. Coming as a last consideration for the Ionian Adriatic pipeline, I think that personally, having a bit been in this discussion from the inside, my perception is that project funding is a priority, but I think that the strong priority is a strong political coordination and commitment from the government. The operators are ready there to develop. In my opinion, project finance can arrive, provided that you can demonstrate that the solution are consistent with the concept of the energy transition. I think that Europe has a lot of funds available. This is my perception. This is what I understood from the commissioner of DG NEAR, so I have the opportunity to speak with him a lot of time. So I think that there should be a strong support from the government, from the different countries that allow this to happen. I think we are not so, we are close to this possibility, and we have to continue to work for this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I kindly invite Mr. Salvatore, but also just kindly ask to try to be short, because we need to be in accordance with the time plan. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So thank you for inviting us in this very interesting meeting. I will try to be as short as possible and in the same time to convince you that along with the hard measures, as Professor Gariba said, also soft measures are relevant and best belongs to this kind of measures. It's a soft measure. Yeah. First of all, I want to share with you, the role of ARERA in the Balkans, because the Balkan Energy School is a project promoted by ARERA, and this is not by chance. ARERA was involved in the activity, in the regulatory activity of Balkans since 2005, when the ECRB, the Energy Community Regulatory Board, started its activity. So we are an active member, and we are involved in all the discussions of the ECRB. On top of that, we took part in multilateral decision with our fellow NRAs in the Balkan region. One example is TAP, and my colleague have already explained, the business case of TAP. ARERA, along with the Greek Regulatory Authority and the Albanian Regulatory Authority, took a decision on the exemption for the TPA for TAP. Another example is the decision on capacity allocation on the cable Italy-Montenegro, that was taken by ARERA and the Montenegrin Regulatory Authority together. Those are only examples of good cooperation in the regulatory framework. The involvement of ARERA in the market integration project between Balkans and Europe took place in around 2017, when ARERA promoted the creation of a working group with the task of studying how to implement market coupling between Italy and Western Balkans. And based on this experience, we realized that without filling the knowledge gap between European and Balkan institutions, this market coupling project would never have been the possibility to realize. So we started with a capacity building activity financed by the Central European Initiative under the so-called CAP program, Know-how Exchange program, funded by the Italian government on an EBRD account. And after several years, we realized that this extemporary intervention should have made a long-term and stable activity. And so we created in December 2022 the Balkan Energy School. So this is the story coming to the school. A few words on market integration. First of all, let me say that I totally subscribe and agree with the description and the conclusions of Guido about the assessment on the target model for Balkans. Indeed, true, there is nothing to decide. It's already, everything is already decided. So when in December 2022, the Ministerial Council of the Energy Community adopted the so-called new electricity package, all the region accepted the European target model. So there is nothing to decide. But there is to implement. And indeed, even though I really appreciated the, I would say, optimistic and encouraging speech of Guido about, you know, the fact that now we have to simply implement something already well-defined, implementation, unfortunately, it is not as easy as it could appear. And indeed, only to give you an example, so contracting parties are expected to transpose and implement piece of EU legislation made of several regulations, 7 or 8, that have been implemented by member states in the past 8 years. So starting from 2015 with capacity allocation congestion management, and then we have other regulations. And so contracting parties have 6 months for transposing, so meaning issuing national legislation and implementing all these regulations. So it's really a big challenge. Maybe it would make sense also to extend your study not only on the assessment of the model, but also on the assessment of the potential obstacles to that implementation. Because indeed, for instance, in June, contracting parties should have nominated the so-called NEMOs, nominated electricity market operator. As you can see on the slide, we have already many contracting parties having a power exchange, so Albania and Kosovo Alpex, Montenegro, Belen, Montenegrin power exchange, North Macedonia MEMO, Serbia CPEX, Bosnia and Herzegovina unfortunately is lacking of a power exchange, but none of them in my knowledge has been already nominated as electricity market operator. So this is a first example of how implementing the package is not as obvious as it can appear. To give an answer to a question raised by Professor Garriba about the roadmap to the implementation, indeed there should be a roadmap, and its name is MCO Integration Plan. So EUSAIR, the Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators, is expected to approve a plan that should be submitted by all the nominated electricity market operators. But as you can imagine, if some PXs are not yet nominated as electricity market operator, all the process could be postponed as a consequence. As a conclusion, a few words on the structure of the school. The rationale for this school is as I said, to fill the knowledge gap between EU member states and energy community contracting parties, specifically in relation to the EU regulation. The presidency of the school, the Balkan Energy School, is held by ARERA, and also the legal premises are in the ARERA office. The current members are the regulatory authorities from Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Greece, Italy, Montenegro, and North Macedonia, and the Serbian regulatory authority is, for the time being, an observer. The activities of the school, as you can imagine, are mainly based on seminars, conferences, and meetings with the stakeholders. We also aim at publishing at the end of this year a policy paper recommending how to overcome the obstacles to the implementation of the electricity package. We deem that there are clear synergies with EUSAIR, in particular with the Pillar 2, of course, and with reference to the activities or the flagship networks and market for a green Adriatic Ionian region. I want to highlight the aspect of the creation of the wholesale electricity market in the region and the development of the integrated electricity market in the region. Both objectives are a side effect of the integration between contracting parties and EU member states within the EU single market, as also Guido highlighted previously. So indeed, there is no further objective. It's already embedded into the current EU strategy for enlarging the single market. Final message is about the seminars and the policy papers we are working on. The main topics are related to the regulations composing the new electricity package, so capacity allocation in the short run They had intraday, as was explained before, but also forward capacity allocation, so all the time frame, but also some focus on the gas market, in particular on the gas crisis, and how to protect consumers in the future from events like, you know, price surge and energy crisis. This is it from my side. I hope that I respected the time. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. And now I kindly invite Mr. Goran Nikolovsky.
Thank you. Hello again. Thanks for the opportunity to present the national EUSAIR projects within this strategy. I will skip the first slides because they were previously elaborated by Professor Gariba. We have major infrastructure ongoing projects in our country, which is construction of main gas pipeline, and also in parallel we have development of the gas distribution network. That's why we have need for additional quantities of gas from other sources, because the existing gas interconnection with Bulgaria is securing us with Russian gas coming from Turkish stream. Previously were mentioned a lot of EUSAIR label projects that were realized in the past, like TAP, Poseidon, LNG, and Monita. Not to be modest, but this is going to be also one of the projects realized within this strategy. That is a project of mutual interest with Greece, which is part of the flagship 5 transition from coal from the West Balkan investment framework mechanism. Main purpose of this project is to support the gasification of the country by providing an interconnection point that can supply large quantities of gas, meet the expected growth in demand, provide security of supply by offering diversification of routes and sources, ensure market integration, aiming at allowing the consumers to have gas prices similar to those of the neighboring countries, and to offer a sustainable energy source to a country that has a poor emission intensity index. In the past period, with technical system from the West Balkan investment framework, feasibility studies were finished, CBA was also finished, environmental impact assessment in accordance with the EBRD rules was also finished, project design was also finished, and we have so far finished tender for supervision of the construction, and in the next coming period, European Investment Bank is going to publish a tender for the construction. We believe that by the end of the year the constructor will be chosen, and that will start with the construction starting from next year. Expected commission of this project is expected by the end of 2025. Second EUSAIR level project is gas interconnector with Serbia. This is also part of this flagship 5 transition from coal from the West Balkan investment framework. So far we have secured technical assistance for preparation of the feasibility study and scope of environmental social impact assessment. Experts has been chosen, and TOR has been prepared for the preparation of the studies. The main purpose of the construction of this pipeline arises from the strategic commitment of the government to achieve higher level of overall functionality of the energy system in the country, and to provide conditions for greater infrastructure and economic integration with the neighboring and the remaining European countries. As you know, this project aims also to transport this gas coming from the southern corridor to be transported additionally to the Central European countries, considering that the gas transit from the previous time that was coming from north to south now is going vice versa. There are a lot of surplus of gas in Greece that is coming from TAP, Turkish Stream, LNGs, and this future project that was presented today is Mediterranean pipeline. Third project, which was EUSAIR label, is with gas interconnection with the neighboring Albania. This project is also will ensure the diversification of natural gas sources and supply routes and the liberalization of the Southeastern Europe energy market. So far, this project is at the initial phase, considering that there were no secured IFIs for the realization of the project. What is the importance of all these projects? They are all future-proof projects. That means that they are project designed and also will be constructed to accept 100% of hydrogen. So they are compatible with the new TEN regulation that was mentioned previously by Adam Bello, and also the European Hydrogen Strategy. All these projects has been also listed into our national strategic documents like the NECP in the dimension concerning the energy security, with measures like for developing all these infrastructure projects, and latest in our Just Transition Roadmap that was adopted recently by the government, where in this pathway for the clean energy pathway was taking into account the conversion of the existing lignite-fired thermal power plants, where it is envisaged the production of green gas, hydrogen, to be utilized in power blocks of the existing coal infrastructure in the country, conversion to natural gas, and of course additional carbon capture and storage for these power plants. That will be all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Goran. And now we come to the last topic for the energy network. This topic refers to the draft revised EUSAIR action plan for Pillar 2. And I kindly ask Professor Sergio Gariba to be short as it is possible, since we have only a few minutes. Thank you.
Sorry, Biljana, I was supposed to have some
Oh,
comments.
sorry, David.
So I accept your invitation to skip it. And no, they were both, all the three very interesting, and with a center natural gas as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Yes, thank you, Biljana. Okay, thank you. I'll be short. First, I should say that the EUSAIR action plan, in its present situation, goes back to the years until 2014. And there is an accelerated change, through the world and through Europe and through, say, the Balkan region. So, the action plan is in need of revision and reconsideration, especially regarding energy. I should also say that I am grateful for the exchange of views had to the purpose with Andrea Cascone, who's National Coordinator of Italy, and with Marco Doglia, who's also, say, National Coordinator of Italy. They were very helpful. We were trying to understand how the future may look like and to collect ideas. Then ideas came from the thematic steering group. I mean, the countries, I mean, the help of Serbia, North Macedonia was essential. We had a lot of discussion during the annual meetings of the EUSAIR. So the last one was in Sarajevo last May. Then we had another one, which is in the year 2022 in Tirana. And the Albanian, colleagues provided us with, again, ideas, support. And the discussion, I should say, started since almost the first day, I mean, of EUSAIR. Because, can you imagine, EUSAIR started in the year 2004, 2014. In the year 2015, we had our first meeting, and regarding energy issues, we had a conference in Paris with a commitment by the countries in order to contain, the increase of the global temperature through the planet. So since that day, I mean, we were concerned because our subject was energy networks. And while we were seeing as the subject the energy transition. Now, the revised EUSAIR action plan focuses on the energy transition. I'll be short because, I mean, there is a document. I don't want to annoy you, I mean, towards the end of our conference. And yeah, so nothing's moving. Yeah, okay. No, I'll go. Yes. Just to tell you what was happening since the year 2014. So we had the Clean Energy for All European package, the European Green Deal of December 2019, which is a milestone, I say, for the European Union. The powering of a climate neutral economy with a number of measures. Then this is a very important element, and I think it is disregarded to some extent, is the economic and investment plan for the Western Balkans of October 2020. And eventually, after the invasion, of Ukraine by Russia, I mean, we had Repower EU, I mean, concerning the security of energy supply. In the meantime, there is Next Generation European Union. So a number of advancements happened, I say, during the last few years. And we have to take into consideration those advancements. Now, of course, while changing and while updating, I say, our energy action plan, we have to consider the book of the EUSAIR level project, the master plan, which was presented by our colleagues from NOMIS and NIC, the roadmap, the conferences, the work, and all like that. The cat, in my view, is EUSAIR, but we look like a lion, anyway. Now, the response by the new action plan. Regarding energy, we introduced a new topic. I mean, the action plan is made by topics, so say pillars and topics. So the topic for energy networks is the previous topic. I mean, we change, of course, the structure and everything. But we have a new topic, which is green energy. We had doubts about that. If calling green energy and climate change, then we decided to be simpler green energy. Now, I'll be saying a few words about the topic 4. We can see, regarding energy networks, 5 opportunities. We have, I mean, the energy networks of Europe, the so-called TNE, long-term prospects. I mean, this plan is going to the year 2030 and perhaps 2050. We have the need and opportunity to connecting and integrating power and natural gas networks. Third is a very important point, exploiting complementarities. I say, should we look at the countries of the region, we have complementarities, which are evident, apparent, but they should be exploited. Then we have to enact the cooperation to allow for investment and project financing. Quite a few interconnects are developed over several countries. The rules are different. And the cooperation is needed. I mean, otherwise investors will never go there. Finally, I mean, we have to share resources and fostering, this is new energy industry alliances. Each country has its own companies, industries. This cannot stay. I mean, we should have, companies encompassing, I'll say, several countries, maybe all the countries. We need large companies with large technology endowments. Otherwise, we will go nowhere. We have to accelerate. But which are the challenges facing regulatory and barriers? Accommodating intermittent renewables and power sources. We need, in principle, storage. We need, in principle, meshed networks. Third, avoiding, and this is a very critical point, the exclusion of natural gas infrastructure from, say, the European Investment Bank financement. The discussion in Europe, within the European Union, on the role of natural gas is underway. In my view, in our view, the Balkan system can contribute to this discussion. Why? Because, the Balkan system, or quite a few countries, are relying upon coal. Coal is out. So what to do? We can go to the renewables, but natural gas will be a nice replacement. Then coping with LNG. LNG is a sort of a new fuel for the region. Not all the countries are on the sea, but there are countries such as Croatia, Italy, of course, Greece, Albania perhaps, which are moving on LNG as a fuel supply. And finally, we have threats. Cybersecurity is a threat, to the energy system, to the networks and security supply. Then 3 actions: power networks, natural gas corridors, LNG. Each action has a number of sub-actions. I would never go into those details. Next, zero emission. The Green Deal is zero emission, zero carbon economies. So, topic 5, green energy. Topic 5 is focusing on the zero emission. Zero emission means renewable energy sources. Renewable energy sources through the Adriatic-Ionian region are there in some countries. Albania, for instance, is relying upon hydropower. Serbia has hydropower. There are other countries which have hydropower. Hydropower is renewable. But we have now solar, wind, biomass. So there are other renewable energy sources with an incredible technology development. Second, making the transition towards renewable energy sources driven by domestic resources. Quite a few countries have their own players, their own companies. So those companies can capture the value of the energy transition. There are warnings, however. As you may say, as you may know, that quite a few components of photovoltaics, for instance, are coming from China. So we had a dependence upon oil. We have now dependence upon the supply of critical components. So we have to understand how to face that all together. So this is a point. Increasing electrification is a must. The zero emission goal cannot be achieved but with increased electrification and hydrogen. Improving energy efficiency is a must for all the region. It is amazing that the energy intensity of quite a few countries of the region is well above the average energy intensity of the European Union. So we have to move on that. More energy efficiency means less energy demand and consumption. Then, cooperating on energy technology innovation. Why? If you look at the region, there are almost no technology centers. There are very few technology-oriented universities, and people migrate. So it is impossible to make companies. Technology innovation, should be a reserve, should be an asset. Challenges, 5 challenges. Confronting climate change, streamlining, the regulatory procedures on renewable energies especially. The third point is very important. With the energy transition, the competitive asymmetries between countries tend to increase. The countries are following different paths, and the competition between countries, unwanted competition might be there. We have to avoid that, and there are stranded costs. Why? Coal-fired power stations, for instance, they will be phased out, but those coal-fired power stations are there. So they are an asset. By closing or decommissioning those coal-fired power stations, we develop stranded costs. The stranded costs should be compensated. And this is an issue. We have to consider this issue. Reducing energy intensity, of course, it has been said, and preparing skilled human resources with a view at science, technology, engineering, and management. This is a need. This is a need that we have in Italy, we have in Serbia, we have in Albania, we have over the entire region. Finally, 3 actions. Deployment of renewable energies, energy efficiency, advancement on new technologies, e-fuels. There was Davide who mentioned the e-fuels, and Pierluigi, hydrogen-ready infrastructure, hydrogen valleys. But this is for the future, the long term. Anyway, I'm finished. The last is a picture you may like. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Sergio Gariba. I don't want to waste your time. I just want to thank once again our host, to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and to all of you for your attention and patience. And now I giving the floor to Mr. Giorgio Emanuele. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before passing the floor to our prominent speakers for their concluding statements, allow me to highlight a few points, crucial points raised in today's conference. First of all, there has been a consensus that the macro-regional perspective allows us to identify the potential synergies between the different states, the opportunities to create networks, and furthermore, promoting coherence and complementarity between national and regional projects. This can lead to better use of resources, such as EU programs, EU funds, and also regional and national human resources and the institutional capital. Secondly, I would like to underline that energy is, among others, an indispensable and valuable component of transport systems. Therefore, both should also be considered as a complementary and joint transport and energy system of region connectivity that should follow the EUSAIR green and digital transition policies and actions. Thirdly, it is expected that through the EUSAIR ongoing revision process and via the master plans in transport and energy connectivity, as well through the EUSAIR embedding process, to incorporate the European Green Deal principles efficiently, the EU Trans-European Networks in Transport and Energy guidelines and the Economic and Investment Plan for the Western Balkans with its guidelines for the implementation of the Green Agenda for the Western Balkans, which are framing relevant actions on transport and energy while proposing improved connectivity and alignment with the European Union acquis. Fourthly, the last but not least one, I would like to also to inform you that the European Council on 27th of June 2023 approved the fourth macro-regional strategy report submitted from the DG Regio after acknowledging the constructive cooperation and progress made among Member States, accession countries and European Commission, also recommending the organization of networking activities among managing authorities of EU programs and thematic steering groups and relevant respective stakeholders for promoting the embedding and funding process of regional strategies and EUSAIR. I would like also, since we enter in the last session, I would like to thank and congratulate the organizers, presenters and participants for today's open, interesting and promising conference. I pass the floor and I invite Mr. the Ambassador Mesic, the Ambassador of Croatia in Italy on behalf of the EUSAIR Presidency. The floor is yours.
Grazie mille, buongiorno a tutti, egregi partecipanti, grazie cari coordinatori, cari colleghe. Vorrei innanzitutto ringraziare agli organizzatori per il loro invito che mi permette di condividere con voi alcune considerazioni alla luce dell'appena iniziata presidenza dell'EUSAIR da parte della Repubblica di Croazia. Durante la nostra presidenza intendiamo altrettanto promuovere l'idea della necessità di prestare un'attenzione più equilibrata alla componente continentale, verde, quanto alla componente marittima, blu. Mentre la metà della Croazia è lontana dal mare, alcuni paesi EUSAIR sono completamente continentali. E riuscire ad aggiungere più temi non strettamente marittimi porterà a un maggiore coinvolgimento di tutti i membri della strategia. Un'altra priorità della nostra presidenza è aggiungere un nuovo campo della cooperazione alla strategia, dedicato agli aspetti sociali. Infine, nel contesto delle nostre priorità strategiche, continueremo a promuovere e facilitare la cooperazione tra tutte e 4 macro-strategie europee. Per quanto riguarda le priorità tematiche, ci dedicheremo ai vari temi, ma in questa occasione vorrei nominare alcune che riguardano il trasporto e l'energia, per esempio la cosiddetta rotta di trasporto adriatico-ionica, la quale consideriamo il progetto di importanza permanente per la regione e auspichiamo di vedere i passi avanti nella definizione delle linee guida per la sua istituzione durante la nostra presidenza. Ugualmente importante consideriamo il supporto all'istituzione del nuovo corridoio europeo di trasporto, Western Balkans Eastern Mediterranean, il quale connetterà letteralmente tutti i 10 membri dell'EUSAIR. Parlando della connettività energetica, la frammentazione dei sistemi e dei mercati di energia ed elettricità rappresenta senz'altro una delle sfide maggiori nella regione, per cui nei prossimi anni una maggiore attenzione dovrebbe essere rivolta all'aumento delle capacità di trasporto, delle reti infrastrutturali e delle interconnessi regionali, lavorando al contempo sulla diversificazione delle fonti di rifornimento, in particolare del gas, essendo l'elemento cruciale dell'indipendenza energetica. Infine, la promozione degli obiettivi dell'Unione Europea definiti dal programma REPowerEU, dall'European Green Deal e dalla Green Agenda for the Western Balkans richiede il nostro impegno comune. Questo processo è ancora in corso, ma la Croazia intende dare il suo convinto contributo. Vorrei infine cogliere l'occasione per annunciare la conferenza programmata per l'autunno sui temi dell'idrogeno e della potenza geotermale, sperando che le vostre agende vi permetteranno di partecipare. Avviandomi alla conclusione, vorrei ribadire anche in questa occasione il convinto supporto della Croazia al processo di allargamento dell'Unione Europea, nonché sottolineare il ruolo importante della strategia e anche di iniziativa adriatico-ionica nel facilitare di questo processo. Vi ringrazio per la vostra attenzione e mi congratulo sinceramente con tutti voi per il lavoro svolto durante questa lunga e proficua giornata di lavori. Grazie.
Thank you, Ambassador Mesic. Now I invite the Ambassador Castellaneta, the Secretary General of Adriatic and Ionian Initiative. The floor is yours.
Yes. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for inviting me tonight as the Secretary General of the organization. And I want to congratulate myself also for the great work they organized and did on this important day. I will bring with me the books that I took at the entrance to read them carefully and be a source of inspiration for the work of the Adriatic Initiative, Adriatic Ionian Initiative. One of the main challenges in the Adriatic-Ionian region remains fragmentation in the infrastructure system, particularly between EU and non-EU member states. Better transport energy connection are crucial of the economic and social development of the region and to fully integrate the Western Balkans region into the European continent. Transport is indeed a driver for the economy of the area and an important enabler of economic integration and development. It facilitates movement of people, goods and services across the border and promotes economic diversification. Investment in transport service and infrastructure directly benefits citizens and businesses. Smart mobility, multimodal transport, clean transport, urban mobility, together with investment in infrastructure for smart energy distribution and storage are particularly priorities for the European Union or its member states. In order to take the full advantage of such benefits, I believe that the investment in infrastructure should be accompanied by legislative and regulatory reform for better service integration. A lot has been done, but there are still some missing issues which need to be addressed. In this context, the EU strategy for the Adriatic-Ionian region, alongside with the EII, is crucial in promoting connectivity, cooperation, and coordination for sustainable development. More specifically, this strategy helps to provide long-lasting solutions for common challenges, speeding up green and digital transition, offering opportunities and welfare, and decreasing regional disparity. The EU strategy for the Adriatic-Ionian region is also a unique platform to connect the Western Balkans with the European Union in many tangible ways, for example, through the cross-border cooperation project that enable the integration of common policy and regulation, as well as the promotion of economic development. As for the initiative, our commitment for the European integration remains one of the cornerstones of our mission. For more than 20 years with existence, the initiative has significantly contributed to building trust, intensifying cooperation, integrating and adopting European values and standards. As the Adria-Ionia Initiative, we will continue to support the European integration aspiration of the Western Balkans and supporting candidates in their bid for accession in the European Union. In addition to the 4 pillars common to the EUSAIR strategy, in recent years, the initiative has worked on further issues, such as the youth dossier, inter-university cooperation, female entrepreneurship and equal opportunities, anti-corruption, circular economy and labor migration, topics which are key to close the negotiation chapters to the future of accession to the European Union. This shows a high degree of complementarity with the EUSAIR, adding a more cultural and social dimension to the economic one. The overall result is a comprehensive set of strategies aimed at fostering integration in the region and at bringing it increasingly closer to the European Union. Let me conclude by congratulating the Chairman of Croatia for the leadership and commitment already shown during the first months of presidency. Croatia started this year of chairmanship with strong positive incentives by organizing a high-level kick-off event and a successful conference on women empowerment, which could further pave the way for the establishment of a new social pillar. I want also to thank you, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation that is hosting us today. Thank you very much. Have a good day and good work for the future.
Thank you, Ambassador Castellaneta. Before giving the floor to Siccioli, Councillor of Region Marche, Mr. Sergio wants to make a statement.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I would like, this is informal, to thank on behalf of all the coordinators of Pillar 2, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation for the hospitality, which was great. But I would also like to thank the Regione Marche. I see Donatella is there. The staff of Donatella worked with us, during the last few days and few weeks. So we have this conference. Now the Regione Marche, is the leader, within EUSAIR, and we would like really to express our gratitude to the Regione for the books, which are nice. I think we found a very interesting set of documents, unusual, and this is all. I'm sorry to interrupt this discussion, but these thanks and these compliments are very much needed, and I hope also Simona is happy about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sergio. Mr. Siccioli, the floor is yours. Mr. Siccioli, yes.
Innanzitutto ringrazio per l'apprezzamento verso la Regione Marche, che qui rappresento come rappresentante politico eletto e come capogruppo di maggioranza della Regione. Le Marche, credo che questo l'abbiate notato tutti, da anni e soprattutto negli ultimi tempi insistono molto sul concetto di macroregione adriatica-ionica. Quindi ringrazio tutti gli intervenuti, tutti i tecnici, gli esperti e il mio amico Umberto Trenta, che è qui vicino a me, che a nome del Presidente Francesco Acquaroli segue con puntualità tutte le attività. Io ho molto apprezzato le strategie, la progettualità, le proposte di azioni, la qualità degli interventi. Da osservatore interno alla macroregione, ma esterno rispetto ai gruppi di lavoro, io sono stato a un paio di incontri, oggi è il terzo, e noto un elemento che secondo me è strategicamente fondamentale per il successo di tutto questo, ed è la spinta politica, che necessariamente, a mio parere, ancora appare debole e deve essere molto più forte da parte di tutti gli Stati nazionali e delle regioni. Gli Stati nazionali, sia quelli interni all'Unione Europea che quelli che non fanno ancora parte, ma spero in un futuro prossimo molto vicino ne facciano parte. Quindi La spinta politica che deve dare l'Italia, ovviamente essendo rappresentante di una regione italiana, la Slovenia, la Croazia, la Grecia come paesi dell'Unione Europea, e l'Unione Europea, la Commissione Europea a Bruxelles, che è il vero poi interlocutore politico regista delle risorse. Mi sento di dire che è inutile sottolineare che il 2024 sarà un anno fondamentale per l'Europa, perché, lo cito, ci sarà l'elezione del nuovo Parlamento europeo, cui seguirà il rinnovo della Commissione europea, quindi del governo europeo, è in corso oggettivamente, quindi non è una valutazione politica, è una nota, uno spostamento in corso del baricentro dell'Unione Europea verso i paesi del Mediterraneo, legato prima alla Brexit, all'uscita della Gran Bretagna che rappresentava l'estremo nord dell'Unione Europea, e successivamente il conflitto ucraino-russo che purtroppo ha congelato il sistema delle relazioni politico-economiche dell'Europa centrale, cioè dell'est verso ovest e viceversa. Tutto questo determina un accentramento, un ulteriore peso di questo territorio. In questo alcuni elementi che sono assolutamente internazionali. Uno è il trionfo della logistica nell'economia del mondo. In questo momento la logistica rappresenta il 25% dell'economia del mondo. Il trasporto delle merci e degli uomini valgono il 25% del PIL del mondo. Il secondo, che il Mediterraneo rappresenta il 13% del sistema dei trasporti e della logistica, di quel 25%, benché il Mediterraneo sia un mare piccolo, è ben il 13%, di questo 13% l'Adriatico, con i porti capofila di Ancona e di Trieste, ma anche con i nuovi porti che altre nazioni stanno implementando, stanno costruendo nuove terminal, e quindi il sistema dei trasporti diventa centrale come terminal dei paesi manifatturieri del Medio Estremo Oriente, che le merci poi arrivano a Suez e con sempre maggiore attenzione rinunciano con 5-6 giorni di navigazione in più che necessitano per andare a Gibraltar, a Rotterdam e a Amburgo, i vari porti del nord Europa, è interesse. Quindi il ruolo leader del sistema adriatico-ionico, con tutte le cose che sono state dette, l'energia, i trasporti, l'economia blu, le infrastrutture, il turismo e l'ambiente, la sostenibilità, questa area sta diventando la cerniera tra il sud e il centro-nord Europa, in presenza di un elemento politico, economico estremamente significativo che è la crescita del Nord Africa. Egitto, Algeria, Marocco non sono più paesi in via di sviluppo, sono paesi che ormai hanno un'economia forte. Io cito un dato, oggi la natalità è uno dei dati più importanti. Negli ultimi 70 anni l'Egitto è passato da 17 milioni di abitanti, quindi dal 50, a 110 milioni di abitanti, cioè 17 milioni, 110 milioni. E la natalità, l'età media è poco più di 30 anni, rispetto alla nostra età media che si è alzata estremamente. Quindi c'è un profilo economico che sta cambiando, che sta diventando centrale. Quindi è il quadro geopolitico dei prossimi anni: il Mediterraneo, il sistema adriatico-ionico, la presenza dei paesi del Nord Africa verso l'Europa e quindi un'attenzione diversa. In questo contesto, mi avvio verso la conclusione, quest'area ha più stati nazionali e più regioni, ma un'area che deve necessariamente abbassare i confini politici e alzare l'asticella delle radici culturali e economiche comuni, con un destino estremamente assimilabile e condiviso. Oggi la differenza in queste aree tra la popolazione, le culture e l'economia diventa sempre più promiscuo e sempre più legato a un comune destino. Deve esserci questa coscienza del destino comune. Io sono uno psichiatra nella vita, noi la chiamiamo consapevolezza, quando uno ha consapevolezza dei problemi, di una malattia, delle cose. Quindi anche i tecnici, gli esperti, che svolgono ovviamente il loro ruolo, che non è politico, devono capire e comprendere fino in fondo il valore geopolitico di quest'area e l'impegno di tutti di renderla protagonista. È un'assoluta necessità l'accelerazione dei progetti e ovviamente dell'attribuzione delle risorse, perché poi i progetti sono bellissimi, ma se non diventano azione. Ricordiamoci che i treni passano e per la macro regione adriatico-ionica il tempo è ora, non è domani, è ora. Grazie.
Thank you, Mr. Sicciodi. Now I invite Mr. Marco Doglia, National Coordinator for EUSAIR, to take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to the pillar coordinators for organizing this very, very interesting conference, in which I think that they have shown us through the master plans how the Pillar 2 has worked for give to EUSAIR a shared vision to identify clearly the challenges and the opportunities on which the job made by the strategy can give us the maximum added value. I must say that today I think that this work show a milestone for the EUSAIR. This is because it translates the action plan objectives in concrete actions. We are moving with the roadmap from objective strategy to actions, and this is really important. I heard very interesting things today. I have heard that we have gaps, that we have to overcome that gaps, and to do this we need something. We need for sure technology, because I heard technology both in transportation and energy. We need digitalization. But I think that one of the most important things that we need is to have stakeholders engaged. The conclusion of the Council show that say themselves, as remembered by the Commission, that the stakeholder engagement is fundamental for the strategy. It is extremely important to have all the stakeholders work together, converge towards the same objectives, and provide knowledge and support to those objectives. The interaction between administration, national authorities, regulators, private sector, university is fundamental for the success of the strategy. And this is because we are working hard to strengthen the stakeholder engagement in this new programming period. It's fundamental to move from a stakeholder platform toward a full stakeholder engagement. The second important thing that today has emerged is the importance of resources, of financing. This means the importance of embedding, the importance that the objectives of the strategy becomes the objectives towards all the funds are sent, are moved. This means for sure the Interreg funds, but also the mainstream funds and the funds of other financial sources like Horizon or external sources. We think that working on embedding is also fundamental. And of course, we must remember that the Commission has helped us putting embedding as a compulsory item in the new regulation. What else to say? I've seen also that we have another issue, the fact that not everything is into EUSAIR. I mean, we have to recall that we have to collaborate with other strategies. I mean, we have talked about data, cybersecurity. They are not in the EUSAIR for sure. We have also talked about security of supply. That means also in this period, defense of supplies. This means that, and this is not in the EUSAIR, but probably it is in other strategies. For Italy, I'm thinking about the large band strategy or the sea strategy, and of course that is working in strong collaboration with the WestMed initiative. But we have to ensure that all the strategies and the initiatives, both national and international and of the European community, work together, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Doglia. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Daniel Gianetti from the Ministry of Environment and Energy Security. Mr. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to participate at this very interesting meeting that could help to provide useful insight for the improvement of the regional cooperation in Adriatic and Ionian area regarding, in particular, energy infrastructure that can play a crucial role regarding the decarbonization process and the economic development. I work for the Energy Department of the Ministry of the Environment and Energy Security, and now we are involving in the finalization of the National Energy and Climate Plan. Full solidarity with the Serbian colleague. The Italian ECP executive summary was already delivered to the Commission on 30 June, and now we are involving in the finalization of the full report draft. The growing ambition of the climate energy targets defined in the Fit for 55 and Repower EU plan, combined with the change in the energy and economic context following COVID-19 and Russian war, have brought considerable attention to cooperation between countries in the Mediterranean area, including Adriatic and Ionian Sea. There are several fields of cooperation in the energy and climate fields which can be explored in depth to find common projects in the direction of decarbonization, energy security, like, for example, renewable. In National Energy and Climate Plan, we define a very ambitious target for renewable in electricity sector, where we expect a RES capacity growth of more than 70 gigawatt, mainly by photovoltaic and wind. As told before, they have to increase more than 4 times for photovoltaic and 3 times for wind power plants. These require the exploiting of all the potential of different technologies regarding photovoltaic and wind power, like, for example, offshore, that could be a field of cooperation. the high level of non-programmable generation have to be integrated into the electricity system by storage system, but also with cross-border interconnection, which could facilitate the management of variable RES production. Italy looks with interest to the full implementation of Balkan electricity wholesale market to improve European market integration and energy exchange that could help renewable deployments and investment attraction. Natural gas will continue to play an important and critical role also in transition phase. This transition phase also, and Italy also, thanks with his geographical position, diversify natural gas supply during the 2022, reducing by half our gas import by Russia, that until 2021 amount to 40% of our consumption. This diversification of route is oriented in particular toward the Mediterranean area, where we supply more or less 70% of our gas supply from existing pipes and LNG terminal. This also allowed us to increase our export toward North European countries during this year. The shift towards the Mediterranean will continue thanks to the recent entry in operation of the Piombino regasification facility, which will be followed next year by an additional one in Ravenna. And also that could be strengthened by the development expected on TAP and the Adriatic backbone that could reduce the bottleneck in the middle of Italy for the flow from south to north of the country. In the medium term, we are assessing also the conversion or the development of a national green hydrogen network. The Italian hydrogen backbone could play an important role for the South Hydrogen Corridor and could deliver significant transport capacity for hydrogen while utilizing mainly existing infrastructure. Redundancies of gas infrastructures along the route will allow to maintain security of supply for both the gas and the new hydrogen market. The project will increase diversification of supply for Europe by creating a specific route with Mediterranean countries and North African countries where hydrogen could be produced at lower costs. The CCS storage project of Ravenna, like maybe the other project in Prinos, Greece, will probably become the main CO2 storage site in the coming years in the Mediterranean area for the hard-to-abate industrial sites and could be active in synergy in cross-border CO2 exchange according to distance and transport needs of European industrial sites. Thank you for your attention. And
thank you, Mr. Gianetti. Now I invite Mr. Cascone, National Coordinator of EUSAIR, for the last closing statement, equally important with the others of the conference. The floor is yours, Mr. Cascone.
Okay, thank you very much, Georgios. It's been a very long day, but I'm sure also very fruitful and with lots of insightful discussions and presentations. So on my side, really, just two very quick comments. And first one is about the revision of the strategy, which was one topic that was often mentioned today. The way we see this revision is that we need to transform or to the strategy to make sure that it really becomes a rolling strategy, a strategy that is able to adapt to new realities, to sudden changes. This is one of the main lessons learned over the past years. And for energy and transport, this is really a big challenge because we're talking about infrastructural projects that requires years of planning. So this is clearly a challenge that needs to be faced. The other point I wanted to make, it was very well mentioned first by Ambassador Mesic, but also by other speakers, and it's the enlargement process of the Western Balkans to the Western Balkans by the EU. And this is really the underlying framework which makes the strategy unique and really gives a clear idea of the added value of this tool. For transport and energy, this means also helping the adaptation to the EU acquis, helping changing regulations, helping regulators to change their rules, their procedures. And this is really key in these sectors to untap the regional potentials. With this, I just wanted to, first of all, join those who already thanked Regione Marche for their steadfast support, not just to today's conference, but in general to the strategy and to the cooperation in the Adriatic Ionian region. And finally, just let me conclude by giving a really warm and personal thank you to Sergio Garriba and Pierluigi Coppola for their, first of all, their personal commitment and their high professional support to the strategy in achieving its goal. Thank you so much to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, in particular, the organizers, again, the presenters, and the participants for today's open, interesting, and promising conference. Have a nice evening. See you next EUSAIR on-site and hybrid events and meetings. Thank you.
Ci vediamo ad ancora.
Tomorrow morning.